There is something going on in Clemson, South Carolina. Dabo Swinney is unraveling.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton Gibbs, former NC State defensive lineman and co-host of Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno, host of Locked On Canes, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download FanDuel today. We'll take a look at big week 3 games in the ACC. Clemson is involved in one of those. They're heavy favorites, but you never know these days. We'll talk about Georgia Tech's path to the ACC championship game and why they should be considered a strong pick to pick up one of those ACC championship game spots. But let's talk Dabo Swinney, because if you guys caught his weekly press conference, it was bizarre in some ways, as Kenton and I are joined by Brian Smith from the Portal Podcast and from Locked On Seminoles. So Kenton, Dabo, when discussing or when asked why his team is 1-2, dropped out of the rankings, struggling out of the gates, Dabo Swinney, he could have gone a number of different ways with the answer or the rant that came about, but he brings up multiple times, hey, listen, if Clemson's tired of winning, they can send me on my way, he said, but I'm going to go somewhere else and coach. I ain't going to go to the beach. He said, hell, I'm 55. I got a long way to go. Y'all are going to have to deal with me for a while. Now, what I didn't like about this, Kenton, is Dabo seems very thin-skinned, and he made it all about himself there. It's weird. Like, nobody is questioning your legacy. Yeah, he went out of his way to mention we've won 8 out of the last 10 ACC championships. Like, nobody's questioning, Dabo, what you've done for the last 10 years. In fact, as a football coach, you should know that what matters right now is what's happening right now. They want to know why your team is struggling. And instead of taking accountability for that, which is the right way to do it when you're making it about yourself like he is, maybe you want to deflect from your players. Hey, this is what I'm doing wrong. Instead, the guy makes this a whole defense on what he's done the last 10 years. I mean, just very bizarre. And it seems like he's starting to unravel a little bit, KG.
Dabo is doing something that he would not allow from his players. If he were to turn on the film and say, hey, Cade, you played like trash against Georgia Tech. And Cade were to say, well, against the Texas team that allowed 4 touchdowns all year before they played us passing, I threw 3. What if you're tired of having a quarterback that throws touchdown passes, send me elsewhere. And I won't retire. I'm going to get in the portal and go be somebody else's quarterback. How do you think that would go? How do we think that would look? At the end of the day, Janet Jackson gave us the very salient quote in the year of 1986, what have you done for me lately, which Dabo seems to have forgotten. This is not a game. This is not a situation. This is not a sport that's talking the type of money where you can rest on your laurels from wins from 8-9 years ago. With all due respect to Clemson and with all due respect to everything he's done. You can't rest on the laurels of 2 to 3 years ago. It does not work in that way. And if anything, Dabo should be happy that he has now raised the expectation in Clemson to where a 1-2 start has people concerned. Because at other schools, that's not the case. I'll give you a prime example. Duke is 1-2. Is anybody looking at them very worried? Is anybody saying Manny Diaz has got to go? No, right? But you know what else is true at Duke? I watched them. I went to Wallace Wade Stadium when they were undefeated and Notre Dame were undefeated at the middle of the season, and Wallace Wade was half empty, with all due respect to Duke fans. Clemson ain't that type of place. So the expectations are going to be there for you to do special things. You set the expectation. Be proud of yourself. And if you're catching flack, own that flack. Own that your team hasn't performed well enough. Own that you haven't recruited well enough or put your guys in good enough positions to be successful to win those football games. But this stuff that Dabo does every time somebody criticizes him, I've won national championships. What more do y'all want from me? What you want me to be undefeated every year? In a year where you had 3 guys that were expected to be drafted in the top 10. Man, stop it. Knock it off, Dabo.
Yeah, that's how do you even Kenton, by the way, very well said, but at Clemson, he holds that program to a higher level, all his players. So why wouldn't we? I mean, that's it. I mean, I'm not. It's like so blatant. It's just like, why is he even bringing this up? And by the way, at the press conference, nobody asked him about this. He answered a question, and then he just went on a diatribe. It wasn't even brought up to him at all. So anyway, I know he's a very good coach. He's earned it. But let me ask you this. You've got, as Kenton just brought up, NFL first-round picks, but you're getting beat by a team that had to take transfers just to fill out their defensive line. And, oh, by the way, they just beat you last weekend.
Yeah.
You got 2 first-round picks on the D-line that every school in the country wanted. And you got beat by the team that had the one guy is starting that's like been at 3 schools. Hadn't figured it out. And they just beat you. So it's what have you done for me lately? 100%. I wish coaches would stop being so thin-skinned. They're the most narrow-minded people on earth. I say it all the time. Yeah. I say it on Donno's Locked on Kane show. I say it on Locked on Seminoles. This is why people get mad with coaches. You are talking about a first world problem. You are worth $50 million if you're worth a penny. Shut up. I don't care.
And that's the thing that blows me, what you just talked about there. The diatribe was completely uncalled for. Nobody asked for this. Nobody even criticized you to come into this. You just naturally said, well, before y'all criticize me, let me beat you to the punch. Let me beat you to the punch. And again, it's just so embarrassing and so beneath him. It's so beneath him. You are a national champion. You are a college football Hall of Famer. You're definitely a Clemson football Hall of Famer. Why are we doing this? If you are not meeting the standard, you are not meeting the standard. We don't have to sit here and pretend. See, Dabo and them, they cut my camera off
because
I'm telling too much truth here. They cut my camera off and trying to get me banned here. But let me tell you something. The reality of this thing is fairly simple, okay? I'm looking at this and saying, Dabo, you've got to do better. You've got to hold yourself to the same type of standard you hold your players to. Because, again, not a single player on that team. TJ Parker can't tell him, so what did I have more roughing the passer than I have sacks this year? Last year, I was an ACC Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He can't tell him that. So why do you get to come in front of the media and say this? It's embarrassing. And it's honestly just a very sad moment for Dabo because, again, you're supposed to be a champion caliber coach. You're supposed to be a college football Hall of Fame caliber coach. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, and the three of us, we're not questioning Dabo's legacy. We're not questioning his resume. We're looking at the 2025 Clemson Tigers who have dropped out of the top 25 after a 1-2 start. They've got an opportunity to bounce back and pick up their first ACC win in their second try this weekend. So at noon on Saturday, Clemson's going to be hosting the 2-1 Syracuse Orange. Clemson, by the way, favored by 17.5 points, which I think is a really big number given how they've looked so far this year. I think Clemson should and probably will win this football game. I think Syracuse can cover. Now, in terms of Syracuse, we're going to get more answers on their defense because you take nothing out of their most recent game. They blew out Colgate, who, was softer than the toothpaste that they manufacture. They didn't put up any resistance whatsoever. They had an overtime win against UConn that probably shouldn't have been that close. They lost to Tennessee their opening week. But I'll tell you one thing about Syracuse. That offense is still clicking, at least against inferior opposition, because Steve Angeli, much like Kyle McCord before him, is leading all of college football in passing right now with 172 yards in 3 games. He's the leading passer in the nation. Syracuse's offense has looked good. We know Clemson's defense hasn't lived up to their standards so far. I'll ask you, Kenton, do you give Syracuse a chance to actually pull off the upset?
I don't give Syracuse a chance to pull off the upset, but I do believe they'll cover. I believe that they'll cover comfortably because this Clemson team, listen, we're just talking about here. We're just talking about, hey, they did a good enough job against a team that was needing transfers to be in the game, in terms of what Brian was saying about Georgia Tech. They were playing guys at Troy. With all due respect to Troy, they've got more accountants on that team than NFL players. They've got more guys who are going to go pro in something else, as the NCAA commercials used to say. They'll go pro in something else besides football. That's what they got at Troy, and they could not stop them from running the ball in the first half against Troy. So I'm looking at this team and I'm saying I don't think Syracuse is quite there to win this football game, but I do think that they'll keep it close, and I do think that they're definitely going to cover 17.5, even with a pissed off Clemson, because that pissed off Clemson was also supposed to go see Georgia Tech. They were supposed to establish their dominance in the Atlanta area, and what happened there, right? So I look at this and I say Syracuse should cover. Syracuse should cover comfortably. Is there an outside chance at them pulling off the upset? Maybe. I wouldn't pick that as my upset of the week, however.
No.
With that being said, I don't have enough faith in Clemson to say you're 20 points better than a fellow ACC team, because with all due respect, they're 0-2 against Power 4 teams. They're 0-2. Don't have a single win. So,
Yeah, look, Clemson, we're not saying they can't be good in the future, but their past is already written. Hall of Famer. Right now, you're not very good. He even pointed, maybe some writer locally said, some kind of clickbait or something. Maybe that's what triggered him. But even so, don't be so thin-skinned.
Yeah.
Kenton said it right. Hall of Famer, titles, you're well loved. Who cares? So that's all I'm going to say on him.
Some writer making $35,000 a year done got you this upset. That's not even your bonus from Coke for standing there holding the drink in the little gas station, and you're going to let them get under your skin. Man, get out of here. Knock this off.
Coming up next, I want to talk a little bit about the team that just beat Clemson this past weekend, because if you look at Georgia Tech's schedule after getting through Clemson, they should be in the ACC championship come December. You want to keep it locked right here. We got Kenton Gibbs. We got Brian Smith. I am Alex Donno. We're only getting started on Locked On ACC. Guys, Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Folks, it is time for Who Delivered. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back on this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, Haynes King delivered in a big way. 211 passing yards, over 100 rushing yards, and a touchdown in their upset win over Clemson. Folks, when the pressure was on, Haynes King came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, that performance wasn't a fluke. King is on a streak. And just like Haynes King delivered for Georgia Tech, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period is through November 18th. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. Alex Donno from Locked On Canes alongside Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. We're joined by Brian Smith from the Portal Podcast and Locked On Seminoles. Make sure you make those shows your next listen. All right, so, Brian, Georgia Tech has a very, outside of Georgia, which doesn't count for the ACC standings, Georgia Tech has a really favorable schedule moving forward after already having beaten Clemson. I guess the question I would have about the Yellow Jackets is, in recent years, they always get up for the big games. Took Georgia to 8 overtimes, beat Miami the last 2 years, beat Clemson this year. I think it's them showing up for the not-so-big games that's been the bigger question.
I would agree, and they certainly have 3 games over the next few weeks to get rid of that problem. Here are the next 3 for the Yellow Jackets. Now, I know the first one's out of conference, but I digress. Temple at Georgia Tech. Good luck. Wake Forest on the road. They're terrible. Virginia Tech at Georgia Tech. Like their next 3, they should just snooze through. It does get more difficult at a place where Kenton doesn't respect the fans very much, rightfully so. Georgia Tech goes to Duke. That game is on October 18th. They got Syracuse at home. But then they go to Kenton's alma mater. They played NC State on the road November 1st. In my opinion, unless Duke gets better, they haven't played that well. NC State is the only team that they're going to play on the road that has at least similar talent that they should struggle with in the ACC. They don't play Florida State. They don't play Miami. They've already played Clemson. Like that's pretty rough. They play BC on the road. Pittsburgh comes to Georgia Tech. That's possible. And to Alex's point, this is the kind of game where Georgia Tech has stumbled. They've got Eli Holstein, decent quarterback, 9-3 touchdown interception ratio. Maybe that could be an upset. And then they play Georgia, which again is out of conference. I think Georgia will beat them, but it doesn't count against the ACC title standing. So they could trip up either Miami or Florida State because they play the big game on October 4th in Doak Campbell and Tallahassee. The loser of that game's in danger of not going to the ACC title game.
Yeah.
Believe it.
When I look at this thing for Georgia Tech and how it shakes out the rest of the way, they've earned their breaks in this one. They've earned the favor, right? When we have a Clemson team that we all talked about, it's not a battle for the ACC. It's a battle for who's going to finish second. It's a battle for who's going to show up to Charlotte and get spanked to sleep by the mighty Clemson Tigers. When you go out there and beat that team, it doesn't matter what the rest of the schedule looks like from a strength of schedule or whatever standpoint. You have the opportunity to be an undefeated or a one-loss group Power 4 champion. You have the opportunity to be that. So that's a very, very underrated part of this whole deal. Even if you lose to Georgia, that's part of it. But I want to talk about something you said there. It's about them getting up for the lesser games, quote unquote. Syracuse last year when they played was not ranked, and they lost that game 31-28. Louisville, they were ranked. They were expected to be a good team at that time. Notre Dame, same type of deal. Virginia Tech. And again, I understand that Haynes King was not available for that Virginia Tech game. So I don't want to play like they had a full card, like they had a full deck of cards and did everything that they could and everything was copacetic there. No. Haynes King was a runner exclusively in some of these games late, but they played phenomenally and pulled off an upset against Miami as well late last season. So this is not to say that this Georgia Tech team does not have talent, that this Georgia Tech team does not have the ability. The question is, who is this Georgia Tech team when you are the hunted instead of the hunter? Because for the rest of the season, every team is below them. Every team, they're going to be looked at as the favorites in every single game they have left until they play the Bulldogs. That's it. Until Kirby Smart in the game comes see them, they're going to be favorites unless they do something terrible and lose a couple back-to-back. So with that in mind, how does this team react to that? Because that's a very different dynamic. I've played on teams that have gone from being a team where it's like, they're scrappy and they're upstart, but can they do it, to then being a team where it's like, oh, they're expected to do it again. They did it once. Can you do it again now? And that's the question for Georgia Tech every week. Can you show up? Can you be consistent? Can you be the same guys every single week? Which I'm not sure that they can be, but I'm not 1,000% sure they're not that. I'm not about to sit here and say, last year they showed me such shenanigans and frackle-knackle down the stretch that I don't believe in them being good down the stretch. I don't feel that strongly about Georgia Tech either way. I believe if I had to lean one way or the other, I would lean towards book your trip to Charlotte if you're the folks from Atlanta. Book your trip if you're a part of Yellow Jacket Nation. Book your trip. But, again, I'm not sold 100% one way or the other.
Now,
For me, go ahead, Alex.
No, I was going to segue, so you should finish the thought on this game.
Does Haynes King stay healthy?
Yeah.
Right.
That's really, I hate bringing that up, but the number one predictor of winners and losers is what? who plays.
Yeah.
When he was out of the game last year, they weren't the same. He didn't play against Notre Dame last year, and they got bushwhacked.
Yep.
It's just they may not have won that game anyway, but they'd had a shot. Without him, they got beat like 35-7. Mm-hmm. So it's different when you don't have your leader. He's been banged up a little bit, and against Gardner-Webb, he didn't play. I don't know if they was a little banged up or they were just like smart. We're not having him run out because they can't tell him to slide. It's not in his DNA.
No.
So the NC State game, Duke game, teams that are physical, even if they win, they could be in trouble because he, throwing his body into the pile. He's got to make better decisions. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Mick Foley does a better job taking care of his body than Haynes King does, in all honesty.
So biggest game of the weekend in college football, College Game Day, is going to be down in my neck of the woods in Coral Gables for number 4, Miami hosting the Florida Gators. This is one I think Big Dabo cut off Kenton's video feed again, but I think he's still there. So Florida has just been a story of dysfunction. Like, obviously they have talent. Billy Napier has recruited well. Has he coached well? I think is a question where the answer is probably no. But you think about Florida. So Caleb Banks, top defensive lineman, has a long-term injury. He's going to be out for this game, possibly the rest of the season. And dysfunction in Florida. So they had to suspend their running backs coach 3 games. The SEC and Florida jointly suspended him for hitting an LSU player in a pregame altercation before their loss to LSU this past weekend. So that's the sort of dysfunction that's going on in Gainesville. DJ Lagway comes off a 5-interception game against LSU. So Miami has every reason to win this game, guys. I mean, for Miami, they've been rolling on all cylinders. I think the biggest question that I have as a guy who covers Miami is, can they keep the same intensity and the same focus of execution for 12-plus games, which they obviously failed to do last year? So are they going to keep doing what they're doing? Where I think the question for Florida is, can Florida get through one game without self-destructive turnovers and self-destructive penalties? Because that team, their talent level should be better than the 1 and 2 that they are right now. So this is a game Miami, Kenton, has every reason to win on Saturday.
Oh, not only will Miami have every reason to win this game on Saturday, they need to be scouting. Not Miami. They don't need to be self-scouting. Scout Florida. Those players are going to have a 30-day window to which they can enter the portal coming up very soon. They're going to have that window. For those of you who don't know, that window opens whenever your head coach is fired. And Billy, don't worry, brother. We've got a space for you here on Locked On. We want more former coaches to get on here and talk ball with us, Billy. Or William. Do you prefer William or Billy? Whichever one you prefer. Come on. Scare money don't make money. And you can make some not great money, but you'll make a bunch of money by getting fired. Is what the best job in America is for fired college football coach. They pay you millions of dollars. It's even better than a divorce. In a divorce, you get paid millions of dollars, but you had to do good stuff to earn it for a while. As a head coach of college football, you could be trash all the way. And when you get fired, they still got to pay you to say, we don't ever want to see you again. So don't worry, Billy. We know you can do a pro bono. Come on there, man. We got you. Because, Donno, this team, that is a rudderless ship at Florida. That is a sinking ship, to say the least. And I'm going to tell you, those players are not going to be like the band on the Titanic saying, gentlemen, it was an honor playing with you. That's not happening. Those guys are jumping ship. So if I'm Miami, I'm looking around and saying, well, let's see who we can pluck from over there. Let's see who y'all got going on. You might not play this year, brother, but we can get you a little red shirt, get your lawyers on the case, get your extra year eligibility, and get you on the squad for next year.
We do have some good lawyers in Miami, as people saw in the Xavier Lucas case.
I know you do, brother.
By the way, Florida is off next week. Guess what teams do, or the administrations, when coaches are struggling? What week do they usually? Oh, that's right. If Miami drops the hammer this weekend, it's not out of the question. But Kenton's point about the red shirt, although I don't think it'll work, I think they may hold off on firing Billy because of that.
Yeah.
Their other bye week is the week before Georgia. Oof. Good. If they fire Billy before Georgia, that could be 49-0. I mean, that could be a massacre. But that's down the road. Just something to remember, though.
Keeping them, you're gonna get 49-10. 30 Start the coaching search early. Don't play around with them. Don't. My mom always just said, if you play with your food, somebody else is gonna eat it. That you got to get rid of them. Go ahead, get rid of them. Go on. Billy, it's been real. It's been fun. They've been real fun. Go on, get.
By the way, Kenton and I have more to say, but we'll say goodbye to Brian Smith. You want to make sure you check him out on X at FBScout_Florida. He hosts 2 awesome shows on this network, The Portal Pod, where he covers all things transfer portal, NIL, recruiting, big stories in college football, along with Locked On Seminoles. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it. Take care, gentlemen.
All right, Kenton, and coming up next, I'll explain why the ACC really needs a win from Miami this weekend against Florida. They need a win from SMU against TCU. Need a win from North Carolina against UCF. We'll explain why we need this so badly when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here on Locked On ACC. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without even touching a spreadsheet. Guys, maximizing investments, increasing your savings rate. Folks, I have had so much experience using Monarch these past several months in realizing how much I was spending and overspending on things like food delivery and streaming services. Do not let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen. All right, so Kenton, let me pull up a graphic here to explain why the ACC could really use some non-conference wins this weekend. So this is ACC record versus other conferences. You look at the ACC versus the Big Ten, 1-for-3. Thank you, by the way, to JKS and Cal for beating Minnesota the other night. We needed that one. Jaron Kiave Sangapulatele, the Cal quarterback, is off to an unbelievable. He's this year's Eli Holstein, right? They're going to rename the ACC Rookie of the Week after JKS. You see the ACC versus the SEC, 1-for-4 so far this year. Florida State over Alabama, week 1 being the only win there. And the ACC just 1-for-4 against the Big 12. Georgia Tech over Colorado, that was the one win. So combined against the Big 10, the SEC, and the Big 12, Miami is 3-for-11. We got to get better fortune this weekend, Kenton, with Miami taking on Florida, SMU playing TCU, North Carolina at UCF of the Big 12. I don't think I'm leaving anything. I think that's all the matchups we have against the rest of the Power 3. We got to get 3 wins in a bad way here.
Donno, we're out here stinking. We're stinking to join up, okay? And part of it is a little bit of snake bittenness. You know, you talk about Williams going down in game 1 for Clemson. You talk about the ref getting a sack against SMU and all those things. But at the end of the day, a lot like I said about Georgia Tech is what needs to happen with the rest of these guys. You need to make your own breaks. That is all you have to do. Win your dang ball games, okay? You can't tell me that all of the teams that these teams have lost to are just so superior talent-wise to the teams we're looking at. You can't tell me that. Now, yes, TCU and UNC, yep, that was a clearly superior team in terms of talent. Clearly a better scheme game, all that good stuff. They were better in every single way. Okay, great. I'll give you that. But for the most part, most of these ACC teams that have gone forth and lost, I mean, it's been really rough. And I will say this, Donno, another thing that we need to factor in, some of these records are directly attributed to sole teams. What do I mean by that? We're 1-3 against the SEC, right? If you remove Virginia Tech, what just happened to that record, Donno? It went from 1-3 to 1-1. But now a team that got spanked by Old Dominion University. Old Dominion, put your head coach out of a job. Brent Pry is now on LinkedIn, which, by the way, Brent, if you want to come on Locked On ACC,
you know what?
You, brother. We got a space. We love to have
we'll do a 3-man box here. I wouldn't mind that.
We just did a 3-man box and we looked all right. You know what I mean? And I know that being light in the box was your problem in the pet. Never mind, we're not gonna go there, bro. But
well, now he's not coming.
Exactly. I'm sorry, Brent. I didn't mean to come on the show. But in all seriousness, this is a situation where the stats can be a little misleading in that way, but we still got to go out and win because at the end of the day, the numbers are the numbers. And more often than not, people don't care about the labor pains. They just want to see the baby. People don't care about, a coach that's fired got you 2 of those losses. They just care about, well, the ACC has to hold 2 of those losses.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate everyone taking the time to make Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch. Thanks to Brian Smith. Thanks, of course, to Kenton Gibbs, Locked On Wolfpack. Make sure you follow him at TGIF_Kenton. Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. Follow me at Alex Donno, and we'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.